Hello，各位观众，大家好，欢迎收看 LMS 春季联赛第三
Good
周。
evening, everyone, and welcome to the final day of Week 3 of the LMS Spring Split, featuring our featured matchup of the week, Yoey Flash Wolves versus G-Rex. Chairman, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am super hyped up for this match. Super excited. I'm ready. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. And just a quick introduction, of course, my name always Mark Rafa Arambide, and my co-caster.
I am Sam El Championship. Welcome everyone.
All right.
So let's talk about this matchup and why it's so hyped up.
So, this matchup, Flash Wolves and G-Rex. For those who have been following the LMS, for a while or know any history about the LMS, everyone knows that the Flash Wolves have been the far superior domestic team representing the LMS region for the past 2 or 3 years, always being the number 1 seed, along with AHQ Esports as the number 2 seed, and with their team history and their dominance in veteran members such as Maple and Sword Art and Betty, that core of the roster has always been looking super good. And then, of course, MMD being the newer player coming in after the absence of Stake. We did have some questions for him, especially with his kind of underwhelming performance at Worlds last year. But as we saw from last night against Hong Kong Attitude, MMD put up a really good job.
Yeah. So, not to put anything, I don't have anything against MMD, but Hong Kong Attitude still haven't been able to pick up a single series win. So I question how his performance last night represents him as a whole compared to other top laners in the LMS. Because against Hong Kong Attitude, he was against Ryrus, who hasn't had a great start to the split.
Indeed not. And then a lot of times we've seen Ryrus being put on these carry champions that he seems to either be losing when he should be winning the matchup, or he almost gives away leads that has been spoon-fed by his own jungler. But we'll get more into that. We're going to take a quick look at the starting roster. On Flash Wolf side's top lane, Hanabi, jungle, Muujin, mid lane, Maple, and the bot lane, Betty and Sword Art with their coach, Warhorse. And this roster has been looking pretty solid so far. Hanabi is the newer top laner, coming in mostly to kind of contrast the style of MMD. Hanabi has been more of the role player for the team, but if they want to switch to more a carry-oriented player, I'm assuming then that the strategy is to switch over to MMD. But Hanabi has looked more solid in his 3 games versus MMD's 2 games.
Yep, I agree. And in the jungle position, Muujin. Now he coming into this split, Karsa did leave Flash Wolves for the LPL team RNG. So that leaves huge shoes to fill because Karsa, with his historical success, he's considered one of the best junglers in the LMS region, and well, honestly, arguably the best jungler for a pretty long time in the LMS region now. So Muujin is his first play in the LMS. He does have huge shoes to fill, and so far I think he's been performing pretty well.
Yeah, Muujin has definitely been bringing a different style to the Flash Wolves, as he is a Korean jungler import from the team Dark Wolves, and then had a short stint on the EU Challenger team, the Red Bulls, over in the EU Challenger series. But even though there seems to not be complete perfect communication between Muujin and the rest of his teammates, he has shown differing pathing than Karsa normally would. As we know from previous Worlds performances and then domestic performances, Karsa has shown a tendency more to gank towards Betty and Sword Art, having that innate synergy with Sword Art and trying to snowball the bot lane side of the map. And then once snowballing that side, then you rotate to mid and you rotate to top. But with Muujin, Mugen has been kind of doing more of his own thing. He plays off what lanes seem to be winning at the moment, being more aggressive, being more on the invading and counter jungling style, more of kind of what you would see in a solo queue jungler, but even sometimes even playing more to the top side, which we never really saw from Karsa.
Yep, and that was shown against Hong Kong Attitude in yesterday's series when um, Hong Kong Attitude, when their jungler Gemini tried to camp for Iris, their top laner, and with a great counter gank, Mugen actually, I think he was able to catch out Gemini and basically win the game off of that. So pretty impressive performance so far from him. Definitely looking forward to this matchup against G-Rex.
Yeah.
And
So
so far we've only talked about Flash Wolves, and now I really want to talk about G-Rex because so far this G-Rex roster, I don't think they've lost a single series yet.
nope, and they haven't even dropped a single game either. Um, whereas Flash Wolves have actually dropped a game to Team Afro. Now, you could call it, a lack of respect or just kind of a fluke. They did run a Shyvana composition, which, if you don't execute perfectly, then once you lose the lead mid game, then you don't really have the objective control that which Shyvana needs to thrive and succeed off of. But now with the G Rex roster up, we've got PK in the top lane, Empty in the jungle, Candy in the mid lane, bot lane between Stitch and Koala, and of course their coach Toys, aka Taipei Assassins World Champion.
Yep. And I think Toys, he's so far in at least in the pick and ban phase, his pick and bans has been really brilliant, and I've been really impressed with it. So definitely, I definitely look forward to what he drafts in this series against Flash Wolves,
Indeed.
because so far what he's shown is that he knows that his team, he's got two Koreans on the roster, so they definitely still have some communication issues. So far he's been drafting a lot of team comps toward that scales really well, and simply just wins games throughout scaling. So but I feel like against the likes of Flash Wolves, that might not necessarily work. So we'll see how this matchup plays out.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely see how Toys kind of adapts to the pick and ban phase. Because one of the things that has been impressive, not only about his team compositions, but also the input and kind of the notes that he will be giving to his teammates. We'll even see, even after a game that G-Rex were able to come back and were kind of losing in the early game, and through really decisive shot calling and teamwork, try to make a comeback play. They'll go over with some notes with Toys, and then they'll seem to basically make huge adjustments, not only just playstyle, but also, okay, you know what? We need to actually draft more towards the bot lane side of the center. They were being really aggressive on the bot side of the map. They were trying to snowball off that side. Instead, now we're going to give you winning lanes in that end, so that even if they try to come bot side, if we draft something like the Galio, or if we play more with TP plays and we're more willing to use global pressure to aid the bot lane to prevent a snowball factor in that side of the map, then we can control the early game and then still start making our plays to the mid game as the G-Rex have done so well.
Yeah, and something else I'm super impressed by is actually just how well G-Rex has been able to play around even when they're losing in the early game, they can play towards their win conditions and get through the early to mid game. And one game that reminds me of that is their game against Machi 17 Esports, where move on Kazakhs, I believe it was Kazakhs, no, it was Sejuani got a huge lead against um, MT's Jarvan, and when the Sejuani was level 6, MT was still level 4, and honestly, it was as bad as it gets for a jungle start, but with some really good teamwork and playing towards their win conditions, G-Rex was able to actually come back from that game and just outscale the enemy team, and that was actually what super impresses me. And granted, Machi 170 Esports, they don't have the best communications either because they do have two Korean imports as well. But that doesn't really take away from the fact that MT was able to come back from such a terrible start.
I agree, and that's something that we've been trying to kind of figure out what would be the breaking factor, because when people are asking us like, okay, who do you think is going to win, what are the disadvantages of each team, and it's hard to try and analyze the disadvantages of two such dominant teams, because normally even when you have a dominant team, there's some weaknesses that basically other teams aren't able to punish. But in one of these cases where we would imagine with Koreans both on Flash Wolves, well, to be fair, it's only one Korean in Mujin in the jungle, and then two Koreans on G-Rex with Stitch and Candy. Just from if we had to kind of go off of like instinct and kind of like how a team dynamic would work, if a lot of the early game shot calling is normally made by a jungler or a support, and if there's not that innate synergy built between Sword Art and Mujin, even though they have been playing kind of just naturally well together, team fighting prowess has been, as always, a strong front in Flash Wolves, and they've been doing that pretty well. I wonder if that's where the first barrier of communication starts to get dicey when paired up against a really strong opponent in G-Rex. But at the same time, how does the communication barriers with Stitch and his support Koala, who don't speak naturally their first language is not the same, and then how does Candy communicate with the rest of his team? I bet Candy and Stitch communicate well with each other, but the only thing that we do have intel on, and we're not sure how exactly accurate it is, but apparently Empty does speak Korean, and he is able to kind of almost mediate between the rest of his team and PK and Koala, and then with Stitch and Candy. So, and I mean, so far the macro plays have been pretty well, and sometimes, I mean, we've seen in the past such dominant teams like I believe it was Royal Never Give Up in Season 4, where they had Insec in the jungle, who was a Korean player, and then basically tried to communicate with the rest of his teammates with just smart pings, who were all Chinese players. I don't remember if there's another Korean back then at the time, but, if they were able to get second place in the World Championships in Season 4, I mean, the game has definitely changed a lot since then, but, I mean, it seems to be doing a great job so far, and we're already seeing a lot of favors toward G-Rex in this matchup, and honestly, I mean, I don't want to feel like I'm just jumping on the bandwagon, but from just based on stats alone, you have to go with G-Rex because they haven't dropped a single game, and they have been the most consistent and stable in terms of KDA, in terms of in early game pressure and in gold leads and all these kind of factors that you would put into a winning team.
Yeah, I agree. But give it straight to me, Mark. What's your prediction?
It's so hard because if I don't want to be like the caster curse factor, but I'm just gonna go with G-Rex. I've been hyped about this team since before the beginning of the first day of the LMS ring split. I love Toys, and I think his former coaching on Raze Gaming did lead them to a very solid and successful debut summer split with that 11-3 summer split score. And then if he's able to just be with the same core roster in empty PK and Koala, and then just bring in 2 Korean stars, and he's been doing such a great job with it, I don't think there should be any reason that their success or their consistent habits should die now. It's just a question of whether those consistencies is going to be enough against Flash Wolves, you know?
Yeah. For me, I think my heart wants GX to win, but my brain has too much faith in Flash Wolves as a brand, as a team, and the historical success for them to lose this. So I'm gonna go with Flash Wolves actually. But jumping to big events, Flash Wolves with the Callisto first ban, GX bans out the Zoe from Maple, and Flash Wolves bans out Camille from PK. And so far, the pick and ban phase has been pretty standard as far as bans go. And there's the gameplay fan from Hanabi.
Lagging a little bit, but getting into the final bans of the first phase from Flash Wolves, it is the Zac ban. One of the more surprising but no doubt very strong jungle pick. Does not have a lot of early game skirmishing power, but once it gets past level 6, level 7, his Elastic Slingshot gives him a variety of gank paths to surprise more of the lanes with. And it's very hard to kind of just ward normally against the Zac. You have to change up the warding patterns a lot. And we're actually going to see the Ezreal first pick for Betty. Now, last night, Betty was killing it on this Ezreal.
Yeah, and the Stitch in his previous series has also been killing it on this Ezreal. So definitely understand the Ezreal first pick. And GX picks up the Ornn and the Rise in return. And actually, the LeBlanc hover. We haven't seen LeBlanc this season at all, but actually, that's not going to happen. It's Vladimir locked in for Hanabi in the top lane.
It looks like that final pick, as they're hovering the Tahm Kench, it would be a solid support pick, but they still have 6 seconds. Let's see if they change. They're actually going to go to the heart of Freljord. It is the man with the mustache, Braum himself.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually like the Braum pick better because currently 80k wise, all the hybrid carries, the Mars, the Cosmo are both still up, and Braum against those hybrid carry ADCs does just so much work with his Unbreakable.
Not only that, but we have seen Braum as kind of the best counter to Ornn overall, whether it's in the top lane or the support. Whenever he throws out that Call of the Forge God, Braum is able to just throw up the Unbreakable Shield and stop the first or the second part of the cast, denying either can the AoE team slow and the brittle, or can even deny the knock-up on the second part of the cast. And we do see Koala picking up the Taric here. Taric has also been a very strong support. That Cosmic Radiance has allowed teams to run squishier compositions naturally and still get away with it once they snowball. With the Cosmic Radiance giving you that 2.5 seconds of invulnerability, it allows assassins like Kha'Zix assassins or really strong fighters like the full warrior build from Jarvan or the Jax to just dive in without fear, tank up and absorb a lot of pressure, and then just basically force the enemy team into kind of a very uncomfortable decision.
Yep. And bans, G-Rex bans out the Jarvan as well as the Sejuani, and in return, Flash Wolves is banning out 80Ks in Tristana and maybe the Cosmo? No, actually the Kha'Zix. So jungle pool is cut down pretty significantly.
Yeah, and so far, none of the Flash Wolves or G-Rex have picked. I would have imagined that MT would have wanted to go to that Kha'Zix, as we've seen the Tark and Kha'Zix have pretty common pair. But right now, we're looking at potentially a Jax hover, and as that last second comes in, it will confirmed be the Jax. So with Jarvan, Sedge, Kha'Zix, Zac, and Jax off the table, other junglers that we've seen around the world have been the likes of Rengar, Nidalee. We've even seen Gragas with Unsealed Spellbook, and in some instances, Skarner and Ivern. I'm not sure which one we'll see here today, as the main 3 tank junglers have been taken. And in fact, I think if we were just to look at LMS stats alone, the next pick would probably be the Nidalee or the Lee Sin. It just depends on what Mugen wants. I don't think they would run Shyvana here, as that could be super risky. We do see that Maple has locked in Cassiopeia, a very strong counter matchup into the Rise, and we'll see how he performs on it. And as this last 6 seconds start to tick down,
I think it's a Rengar. That's only. I think that's the only pick left.
so this is actually the first Rengar pick of the LMS split. We have seen Rengar in other regions, mainly the LCK, and I think we've seen a lot of it in. No, I think LCK has been really the main proponent of Rengar, and for me, Rengar has always been this pick that seems really snowbally and it seems kind of risky, because if you don't pop off with the Dustblade build, I always feel like you're not really useful. But the way that the Koreans have played around the Rengar pick, they've used it mainly to kind of. A lot of teams will be playing the early game pretty safe and controlled, so nothing really happens pre-level 6. Then that's when the Rengar kicks in. That Thrill of the Hunt is able to set up a lot of ganks or picks and a lot of kill pressure. That early damage spike from Rengar does do a lot of work, and between these lanes, I would imagine he would be wanting to look to either invade onto the Jax or look bot lane past that level 6 mark. However, with early on, Rengar does kind of struggle in his early clears, and so I want to see MT how he can punish that, because Jax definitely clears a lot safer, a lot healthier, and early on, most of his lanes have the push advantage here.
Yeah, and looking at the lanes, I think in the bot lane, Ezreal, Betty should have a easier time on Ezreal compared to the Varus. But in the mid to top lane, Maple has I do think Maple has the push advantage on Cassiopeia against this Rise, because that matchup is pretty hard for the Rise pick. And in the top lane, I do think Ornn should be able to push in Vladimir, at least in the early game. So Vladimir does have a much better late game, I think, compared to the Ornn, with the huge dive potential onto the backline. So but looking at the team comps, I do think that Flash Wolves team comp is quite squishy. So if they do fall super far behind in the early game, they don't really have any tools to face check bushes and try to contest Baron Vision. So that's one of the worries I see looking at the team compositions.
Indeed. Looks like we're not quite into game yet. Probably just making sure, going over all the technical specs, making sure that everyone is all set to go. But yeah, I do want to bring up your point about that Cassiopeia lane matchup into Rise. We've seen how dominant the Cassiopeia can be against that pick. We've even seen disasters coming from junglers trying to do a level 2 red buff gank when I believe it was AHQ trying to make a gank onto Machi17 Esports' Apex, and just the presence of mind on Cassiopeia is a really underrated mastery, allowing you to get basically unlimited mana costs for about 7 seconds upon any takedowns and level ups.
Yep, and that actually let Apex get the kill onto Waco, and then Mountain at level 2 on Jarvan doesn't have enough damage to kill Cassiopeia by himself. So that basically just snowballed the game out of control for Moxie 17.
We'll definitely have to
So
see if Maple can do something similar here.
yep.
Hopefully, though, for G-Rex, they don't bamboozle themselves and do something quite risky early on. But we are now in the game. Looks like Betty Mugen and Hanabi are on the bot side of the map trying to scout out potentially for a delayed invade, but they decide against it as they see Stitch put up a ward. Betty's gonna go ahead and do a special dance, show them all how to really do it. And it's kind of an interesting. If you look here, we have almost what we want to call the League of Unsealed Spellbook so far. Almost all of G-Rex taking it in the beginning of the game, and then even Braum and Hanabi on the other side. And it is expected mainly for Vladimir's. That has been one of the things that has made him so strong. These couple of patches, being able to flex between multiple summoner spells. First for the lane dominance in the Ignite or defensive spell, and then trading between Teleport to maintain split push pressure or Ghost and Flash for those team fighting dive potentials as well. But he's actually going to opt in to Barrier Flash the early part of the game.
Yeah, I do think that the barrier does bring a lot of safety to Vladimir, because one thing Vladimir is scared. Oranges does so much early damage, and Vladimir in the early game doesn't. It's his weakest point, and he definitely doesn't want to die in the early game. So the barrier just brings a lot of safety to that lane. Looking at the mid lane, Candy is getting pushed in by Maple, but should be able to clear all those minion waves under their turret. And looking at the jungle paths by both junglers, Mujin actually started boss side, and he's doing a full clear towards the top side. And Empty actually started red buff and is clearing the blue buff right now.
Yeah, Empty looks like he did red Raptors, Wolves, and then blue buff. But actually, we have an all-in coming from the bot lane. Stitch getting quite low, having to burn both sums. One more auto attack from Betty will confirm him first blood, and it looks like he will be backing off of this exchange. But gosh, I was.
Wow.
What happened? I kind of got a little distracted by looking at the pathing, and then suddenly I looked and saw that Stitch was just slowly dying. What in the world?
Yeah, definitely lack of respect for the Ezreal early game here. Honestly, as far as at level 2, if you put your 2 points into the W and E, and if you use E early, you actually don't have that much damage. And compared to the Ezreal, who at level 2, it's I don't want to meme about it, but the level 2 power spike, you gotta respect it. Especially on a champion like Ezreal, who just does so much damage with his Mystic Shot and his Arcane Shift.
The quick replay here looks like they just. Wow. So I guess.
I think Koala needed to flash to block the Mystic Shot from Betty there, and we see Koala, he still has his flash up. Sure, Stitch overstepped in the early game, but I do think Koala needed to flash to block for his 80k.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about, and I couldn't decide whether if he had to flash earlier, was Stitch, because as soon as he got tagged by that first stack of the Braum passive, it made things. Actually, we're going to see Mugen pay an early gank potentially here, but he actually is able to now jump onto Koala as he flashes away. He's so low, about 110 health left, and the final W from Mugen will pick up the kill. That's 2 kills under 5 minutes from Flash Wolves onto the bot side of the map, and so far Stitch and Koala have been on the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a disaster for the bot lane of GX because they both have unsealed spellbook, even though they haven't swapped for the TPs yet, but they don't have the extra safety slash sustain slash tankiness from the normal runes on these champions to protect them. And when you fall behind on unsealed spellbook champions, especially in the bot lane, the whole point of taking unsealed spellbook is so that you don't really try to trade in the lane. You just push out the lane over and over again and switch to TP. And you apply pressure on the Ezreal because Ezreal he lacks a lot of wave clear, right? But when you fall this far behind in the early game, that spells disaster, I think.
You don't have the combats and summoner spells then to change out for more flexible spells like the TP, and then without Fleet of Footwork or the Aftershock as Stitch and Koala would normally take on these two champion picks, it
I
pales
think
in.
actually it's the Guardian on Tarek.
Oh yeah, New Guardian makes more sense as well. But like you said, the resolve tree would be more beneficial in one of those keystones for Koala if he's not taking the unsealed spellbook. But like you said, that if they're taking unsealed spellbook for the endless wave clear pressure, and then they kind of misstep early on and disrespect the all-in damage from an Ezreal Braum, then this just kind of throws the whole early part of the game plan of just trying to push. And now they're on the back foot. Both of them do have Targon Shield, so they might be able to have the sustain advantage to survive in the rest of the part of this laning phase. But Betty has already completed a Sheen, and we saw this yesterday against Hong Kong Attitude where he didn't even build a tier first when he started snowballing. I mean, we saw, I think it was like a 9-minute Iceborne Gauntlet from Betty, and even though we were criticizing it a little bit as, normally you want to get that steer stacking as fast as possible, we did see the Iceborne Gauntlet do a lot of work in getting those slow procs and giving him actually a little bit of wave clear, as that is something that Ezreal normally lacks in the early laning phase.
Yeah, and at this point, we can see that Koala and Stitch are actually getting poked down by Betty on this Ezreal. And in yesterday's interview, when we interviewed Betty, he did say that the reason why he built Iceborne Gauntlet first item is because it's actually for the lane dominance. So definitely going to see if they actually play towards the bot lane, I think, and I think they should. And maybe just completely shut down Stitch and Koala. And I do think that Stitch is one of the primary carries for GX. And if they shut him down, it's up. I think it's up to Empty, or it's up to Candy to carry this team.
We have to. I don't know, you meant Candy towards that mid lane on this rise, but I did want to kind of look at Empty and see what he's doing to counteract this pressure that's been forced upon bot lane so far. And I mean, other than 5 CS, which is just really just a camp, the only thing that he's been able to do has been ward up the top side of the jungle. But Muujin has been content with leaving that up, as he's just been living in that blue side of the map on G-Rex's side, taking all those camps, the Gromp and the Wolves, and then recently gifting the blue buff over to the Maple. And I've been afraid that if they continue being able to push up without any intervention from Empty or PK, actually they're going to go for a top lane gank, but Hanabi is just going to go ahead and spend the stopwatch for the Call of the Forge God. Decent trade there, as that will prevent any form of dive or potential death from Hanabi's side of the map.
Yeah, very respectful by Henry there. I actually don't think he needed to use it just to live right there, but good respectful play by Hanabi.
Yeah, Hanabi recognizes that his bot lane already has the advantage, and Muujin does have the snowball pressure advantage as well, with that one kill already up on the belt of Rengar. If they can continue living on this bot side of the map, they can prep for a dive, as Braum is naturally tanky and He doesn't have stopwatch, neither does Betty, but they should be able to pull off a dive nonetheless against the likes of Stitch and Koala if they needed to. However, Koala is now level 6, so they would have to time it pretty well against that Cosmic Radiance.
Yep, and looking at Betty's build, he's actually opted into the Iceborne Gauntlet for his item again.
It looks like there's actually an all-in coming from the bot lane. Empty has finally made his move, but the Cosmic Radiance seemed to proc a little too early, and Mugen is here for the counter gank. The throw of the hunt will scare Empty and the rest of the bot lane away, and now with Stitch and Koala sitting at both about 300 and 400 health respectively, they cannot be in a position to protect us as well. Meanwhile, in the top lane, PK is actually going for an all-in Hanabi, using the Hemoplague to try and sustain up. One more blood transfusion Q will give him a lot of sustain as he needs, but PK might have the damage. Hanabi tries to flash away from the part, but PK misses, does not get the knock-up. Hanabi will actually survive the all-in extent. PK still has flash, but does not have the ignite for the kill pressure, and looks like PK, with the amount of mana that he has to be careful. He cannot try to all in on this lane anymore. And with that, Empty did have to leave the bot side to clear the rest of his jungle. Koala and Stitch are trying to clear this as safely as they can, but with less than 100 health from the turret, that should be first brick for Flash Wolves.
Yeah, and Maple and Mugen are actually both here, so if Stitch and Koala overstays here, it could be dangerous. But looks like they're not going to contest, and Flash Wolves got first blood turret onto this bot side.
12 minutes into the game, we have from that first brick and now solid 3k gold lead from Flash Wolves. Mugen already completing that warrior enchantment, whereas MT has completed his Cinder Hulk. Standard stuff from both sides. Mugen already elected into a Ninja Tabis, so gonna have the extra damage reduction from Empty's auto attacks as well as Stitch's auto attacks. Will not do so much against Candy on the Rise or PK and the Ornn, but if Mugen is currently playing towards this bot side or towards his bot lane, he'll just be going wherever they go, using Sword Art to set up plays onto the immobile Stitch here.
Yep, and with first turret gone in the bot side, Betty and Sword Art has swapped to the top side, and so does Stitch and Koala. And in this long lane, as Ornn and Vladimir, I actually think actually Candy might be a little caught here, but uses the Realm Warp and the Stopwatch, he should be fine.
Yeah, Candy does feel bad about having to burn that early on, but it is one of the strengths of playing Rise with the Inspiration Tree. Stopwatch Realm Warp guarantees you a little safe passageway, but Candy actually teleports right in front of Maple, and Maple is going to use the Petrifying Gaze, but nice sidestep and turning away at the last second from Candy, being able to not take too much damage from a potential all-in on Maple. Empty's going to find Hanabi with the Counter-Strike. Hanabi does not have flash from before. He can have pull. Will use it to dodge the knockup from PK, but they're going to dive this, and Call of the Forge God will be used to finish off Hanabi. A kill for PK.
Yeah, Hanabi definitely doesn't have flash, and PK with the summoner advantage, and Empty, he knows that Hanabi doesn't have flash, and good gank by Empty, but in return, Mugen will be able to pick up this Rift Herald here. And at this point, I think the two junglers have split the map by a little bit. Empty has been trying to play towards PK, his top lane there, while Mugen has been playing around his bot lane, which, to their credit, has won lane by themselves in both this game as well as their games against Hong Kong Attitude. And 2v2 kills in the bot lane, especially in competitive play, does not happen very often. So kudos to Betty and Sword Art for being able to get the solo kills, or not solo kills, the 2v2 kills against G-Rex, Stitch, and Koala.
Indeed. That small misplay from Stitch has definitely cost a lot of the early snowball, or resulted in the early snowball from Flash Wolves, and Mugen has been the strong benefactor, as one of the things that does hold a Rengar back is if you don't get the snowball advantage early on. As if you don't snowball on Rengar, you don't get the passive, you don't get the throw the hunt stacks, you don't get the passive bonus AD increase. And if you can't snowball with the Rengar, then really the only thing that you can do is just use your throw the hunt for vision control and perhaps get an empowered root off with the Ebola strike. But always get those two things confused. But it looks like Maple, with that pressure and the blue buff being passed on to him, he's going to try to pressure mid lane. Mugen has summoned the Rift Herald. They want to be able to knock down this outer mid turret. They do not have the most safest of or quickest of wave clear. That one Rift Herald stack will bring it to about 100 HP. One more hit should be able to do it. Cosmic Rating is going to be popped as there's an engage, but the turret is still not dead. It's still surviving. Mugen is trying to look for something on the backside, but meanwhile, his team is dying in the front. Sword Art taking a bunch of damage, having to flash away. They finally get the turret. Hanabi TPing in, landing the Hemoplague onto 2, chunking out PK and Empty, but no one has actually died, and they are just able to trade the outer turret, but for no lives.
Yeah, G-Rex with all 5 members tried to defend the mid tier 1 turret, but Hanabi using the TP was able to actually finish off the turret, and at 16 minutes, that's all 3 outer turrets down for G-Rex, and that brings a 4k gold lead for Flash Wolves.
The Flash Wolves snowball is definitely starting to accrue even more and more. They're trying to push the advantages. They know as veteran members, you don't want to just be sitting with your thumbs. Oh, I don't know what the expression is. You don't want to be sitting on your thumbs, I guess. Basically, you want to be proactive. When you have the snowball, you have everything to lose. And you have the game is in your control. You're in the driver's seat. You need to be making the moves. And so as we look at the replay, the Rift Herald almost brought the turret down to HP, but this was almost a botched dive attempt from Flash Wolves as Mugen just kind of went off to the backside trying to look for a pick onto Koala as he was under 100 HP. But Sword Art and Maple taking a lot of damage from PK's Ornn. It wasn't until Hanabi did TP using the Hemoplague pressure, finally pushed G-Rex off of the mid turret.
Yeah, and PK. Yeah, and Koala actually got super low there, down to less than 100 HP. I think both both teams are playing with fire there.
One thing that we do have to mention is that even though Flash Wolves do have the early pressure advantage, it's not like G-Rex have not been in this position before. They have kind of had the backside of the early game not given to them, but just because they haven't won the early game doesn't mean they've been able to play from behind. And one of the win conditions here from G-Rex is that even though Stitch is behind, he does scale pretty well on this Varus, and then Taric also scales incredibly well as a support, as once you get level 16 on the Taric, or you get level 12 or 11, the cooldown on the Cosmic Radiance gets so low that you're able to use it multiple instances in extended team fights. And MT and PK are going to scale way better as tanks than just Sword Art on this Braum.
Yeah, and that's the thing that actually worries me the most, is that this double frontline by G-Rex in MT and PK. In comparison, Flash Wolves doesn't actually have the luxury of 2 tanks as their frontline. So especially in combination with Koala's Cosmic Radiance, that frontline is going to be really scary. And if Flash Wolves do get engaged on, and I don't think there's no way for Maple on this Cassiopeia is going to have a really hard time protecting himself against those dives.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the only disengage options you have from Flash Wolves is getting a multiple Petrifying Gaze landed, especially with the stun on, as the slow is not going to do that much. And even Sword Art, Glacial Fissure will knock up only one target and then slow the rest. But if you have Call of the Forge God coming at you from a mile away, and if Sword Art is not able to use that unbreakable shield, then Maple is pretty immobile, as well as Hanabi. Both in fact are immobile on these two mages, and Betty being the only one that has some mobility.
Yeah. So at this point, it is up to G, and now at 20 around 20 minutes, Barry has spawned. So both teams are trying to set up vision around this area. And at this point, I think it is up to G-Rex to try to engage Price, and I do want to see them try to set up fights on their own terms, because getting engaged on, especially as Satiric and the Baris, doesn't necessarily feel that good. But again, I do think that their comp scales really well. So we'll see in those mid to late game fights if they can win the 5-on-5 fights.
We'll definitely have to see how this goes. Sword Art is just trying to get some vision on the top side of the map. Their Flashfuls are definitely taking the next correct steps, establishing vision and vision control around the Baron side of the map. They're definitely going to need the Baron buff for these sieges, as the wave clear from Candy is starting to get a little too oppressive, and as we saw in that siege for the mid turret alone, it was incredibly hard for Flashfuls to actually commit without risking the deaths of some of their team members. So with that Baron buff, they should be able to take siege much safer. But one thing that we do have to look at is that in terms of item advantages, really the only person that has a significant item lead is Betty, of course, with the 2 kill leads and the 30 CS. Sword Art is just going to be able to jump to safety here. Nothing to be concerned of. He was trying to contest that control ward on just by the bush, by the Raptor camp. But, Betty has 3 fully completed items. Iceborne, Manamune as he's stacking it, and the Blade of the Ruin King. Whereas poor Stitch has just barely completed his Gwynsu's Rageblade and is trying to work towards what I would imagine either the Wit's End or the Renan's Hurricane for wave clear.
Yeah, I definitely think that Wit's End would be the right call here, because he is up against the Vladimir and the Cassiopeia, so plenty of magic damage to negate for that Wit's End. And yeah, that's actually a pretty huge lead. A pretty big item difference in the bot lane. So definitely gonna be a pretty big factor in these upcoming fights. And looking at the summoner spells, actually, Maple is going a little aggressive onto empty there, but he's Jax. He can just leap away. But going back to the summoner choices, PK has actually swapped his TP for an exhaust. So I think that Candy from now on will be the one split pushing against Hanabi on his Vladimir. And from what we've seen so far in other regions, I think Rise does win the 1-on-1 against Vladimir, because Vladimir, it's very hard for Vladimir to get in range against Rise to use any of his spells without using his pool. And Rise with his spell shield and with the shield at this point a very low cooldown. It's a little scary for Hanabi.
Yeah, the other big thing that also the Rise does have the favor of course, is that superior wave clear. Being able to proc the spell flux combo with overload just shreds. Actually, it doesn't even shred. It more like just instantly deletes waves. Kind of like the only other champion I can think of that really does that at this point is Gangplank. 80 version, of course, but it's so hard to actually split push against the Rise. Is like you said, Chairman, the really low spell cooldowns on his spell flux and his overload gives him that wave clear, and also in tangent can pair it to get multiple Arcane Mastery shield procs. Candy and Hanabi are actually in a 1v1, and he almost wins, but I think he was a little scared of being overextended and not being able to join for this Baron fight, as Mugen has made the call to start up the Baron, going down to 47 HP, but they decide to back off as Hanabi was not able to take out Candy. They do not want to risk having to fight a 5v5 on the Baron and going to a 50-50. They will be backing off, but G-Rex do want to now take this opportunity to try and establish control or regain control of the Baron pit area as they're sweeping out and controlling the wards. They might even be able to pick up the Scuttle Crab onto the side of the map.
Yeah, I definitely think like Candy could have won the one-on-one against Hanabi there, because Hanabi already used its ultimate and all his spells, so I think he was running out of damage, but Candy respects the potential gank from Mugen and uses the round warp to get away. And against the team composition of Flash Wolves, the Rise here actually, the only thing that can interrupt his round warp channel is actually the Cassiopeia Miasma and Sword Art on the Braum ultimate. And I think if Mugen uses the empowered Bola Strike, that can interrupt the Rise ultimate as well. But that's only 3 things that can interrupt it. So looking at his item builds, he's actually not pressured to build itemize Azanias. Actually, G-Rex has no idea the Baron has been started.
MT is able to place a control ward over the map or over the Baron pit wall, and once again Flash Wolves decide to bail on the Baron pit. They're trying to make this Baron play work, but they're not able to get in a position where they can actually fully on commit and take it, or even bait G-Rex members into a face check situation and jump on them. And I would imagine that's what you kind of want to do with the Rengar at this point in the game. He has opted into the Black Cleaver, which is actually what a lot of Korean Rengars do. They don't, unless they're, popping off, they don't really build Duskblade. Actually, Koala's going to find himself in the pickle here. He has to flash away. The Braum passive stack is up. Braum Unbreakable Shield will cancel the call of the Forge God from PK. Nicely done. Chain of Corruptions will stop the engage here, however, and Flash Wolves do have a health advantage onto Koala, but he's Taric. He should be able to sustain up in just a moment with that tier fully stack, being able to spam the heals on himself. But Flash Wolves will use that opportunity to try and clean out some vision of the Baron while they can. But Candy is doing so much work on this split push pressure against Hanabi, and Hanabi is trying to do his best, but now Mugen is here. Handy is going to use that Realm Warp to get out alive. This could be an opportunity. They did see Mugen on the bot side of the map. They might be able to start Baron, but they've opted into an all in the mid lane. Stitch has been exhausted, as well as Betty. Glacial Fissure being thrown out to stun up Koala, but Stopwatch will be used to temporarily buy some time. But Koala gets annihilated by Hanabi, and Hanabi wants more. They're diving onto the backline. PK's doing his best to defend, but a double kill comes from Hanabi as they take out Stitch, and now they're on the run. Flash Wolves do have the advantage to start the Baron. MT and Candy and PK are still up, but they're going to have to play it slow, and they're going to have to play it calculated if they want to take this Baron. They have the vision over the wall. MT has placed a control ward over the wall, actually chunking out Mugen. He's super low from the call of the Forge God. He has to be careful. Betty is going to try and just solo out MT, and he has nowhere to go. The Braum passive stacks. Stopwatch is not going to be enough. He goes down, but Mugen is being soloed out by Candy, but no, too much from Hanabi and Mugen's efforts, and unfortunate circumstances from G-Rex. They tried their best to stall out the Baron, but Flash Wolves are going to be able to secure it here.
Yeah, and at this point, Betty just does so much damage on this Ezreal, and again, like I said, I think G-Rex needs to fight on their own terms, and I think Stitch and Koala, without the rest of his team, going for those 2-on-2 fights was. Let's take a look at the replay here. So Stitch uh, definitely oversteps a little bit, and then right here, MT is actually coming here, but the TP comes in from Hanabi and just destroys Koala, and without the Cosmic Radiance, fight like this, and Kenny wasn't there in the first place actually, and it's really hard for G-Rex to come back from that because their frontline weren't there at the start of the fight.
One thing I'm curious about is like when you see Candy pushing on the bot side of the map, and then as soon as you see the Rengar ultimate, for me that's a call to go instantly. You should Baron. Muujin is on the bot side of the map. He used Thrill of the Hunt, so a lot of his movement speed that you would normally get from using that ultimate is now gone. But instead, Stitch and Koala opted in to push mid lane and then opt in for an all-in, which made no sense because Empty was clearing out vision on the Baron. So I guess miscommunication there, or I'm just not sure what the team call was there.
I think they just don't have enough vision control around the Baron move to start it, and so far they've only been able to not let Flash Wolves take Baron. But I honestly think pushing mid when they saw Rengar bot was the right call because that allows them to try to get control back in the Baron pit. But with the Baron buff, Flash Wolves easily takes the mid inhibitor turret, and I would assume the mid inhibitor as well.
Yeah, that seems to be the situation here. You can't put Candy on both lanes to protect both bot and the mid waves. We're going to have to see if they continue. Actually, Unbreakable Shield is going to be used to block a lot of the damage and any potential engages from G-Rex on that side. Betty is going to throw out the True Shot Barrage. Not missing or not hitting anyone there. But, Ezreal Mystic Shot cooldowns will be able to lower it in just about a minute's worth of time. Maybe he can get another one procced up. MT is now here. He's going to look for the Counter-Strike engage, but doesn't get it off. Muujin is going to throw out the Thrill of the Hunt, trying to look for something. Unbreakable Shield will block the Call of the Forge God one more time. Cosmic Radiance is now popped. They're invulnerable, but only for so long. Hanabi flashes in and gets a 5-man Hemo Plague. He's diving so hard onto the backline, but he actually gets evaporated. They trade Empty for Hanabi, and actually Muujin is a little too far forward, and their G-Rex have actually been able to pull out this fight. Realm Warp will be used to try and get a flank here. Actually, they opted out of the push here. They're going to just be content. Wait, Betty is stepping a little too far forward. He has the Arcane Shift back. PK is now trying to frontline for Stitch and Koala. It's a 3-on-2. Betty is putting out a lot of damage here, but PK is not able to handle it all, and Stitch is not being put out a considerable amount of damage to share. Call of the Forge God coming out one more time, and Betty flashes over the Call of the Forge God, and now Koala trying to use the Dazzle of the Sun to buy some time, but here comes Maple, and he's putting out more damage. Betty throwing out Mystic Shot after 1, 2, 3. Can he get more? Firing one onto PK. The Braum passes stock will land, and he predicts it, but he's not going to be able to kill him just yet. Empty is trying to defend with his life, but Betty is just insane on this Ezreal, and they cannot even come close to killing him. Empty goes in for the Counter-Strike. Sword Art flashes away, and look at Betty. He has no fear. This man is just crazy. He's just absolutely dodging in and out. Petrifying Gaze lands onto PK. This fight is still going on, but finally Flash Wolves have backed away from the bot lane, and that was just insane performance from Betty there.
Yeah, Betty actually putting on a show here, but I think something we didn't mention is just every single attempt at engagements from G-Rex so far, especially on his Ornn, has been denied by Sword Art's Braum. And taking at the replay here, that Call of the Force God has been denied so many times. Hanabi right here definitely dives a little too hard and just gets one shot, but because Flash Wolves doesn't have a front line, they start winning the fight, but Ashley tries. Wow, Candy actually walks into my asthma and actually canceled the round warp.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, unlucky, but. Sora and Betty in this 2-on-4 actually is pushing the entire team of Flash Wolves or G-Rex back. And Flash is over the call of the Force God mastered. Wow, it's Ezreal.
Yeah, Betty even flashing over the call of the Forge God, and just like he's been having such a great understanding of these team fights. And actually, we're going to have another one here on the top side of the map. Koala is getting super chunked, and he might not even be able to proc the Cosmic Radiance, but he gets it off. PK did not get the Cosmic Radiance, and Koala will go down along with PK Candy. 1v4ing, trying to get as much damage as he can, using the Realm Warp to get out safely. But Hanabi has been diving the backline, and Stitch and Candy also go down. They're driving... They're diving the Nexus at this point. We already know what this means. Empty cannot do so much at this point. 35 minutes into the game with a clean, impressive showing from Betty's Ezreal will be the first game in this exciting series.
Yeah, and when you look at that game, I think he just got to ban the Ezreal or first pick it. Because Betty on this Ezreal is actually so scary. And that's the second time they've pulled off 2v2 kills in the bot lane, and which is something you don't see very often in professional play. So I just think he either toys for G-Rex they either need to ban out the Ezreal or first pick it in game number 2. And something else I want to look at is actually Sword Art on this Braum, because every single attempt at engagement by PK, the call up the Forge God gets blocked by Braum's Unbreakable, and without that Ornn ultimate, G-Rex doesn't have any more tools to engage fights. They've got Rise Root and the Counter Strike stun by Jax, but that's about it. So I think when they approach the pick and ban phase in the next game, the bot lane combo for Flash Wolves, the Ezreal plus the Braum is, I think, the key thing to look at.
Indeed.
But overall, that was a master tier performance by Betty on the Ezreal.
It's just watching Betty weave in those Mystic shots and sidestepping so many skill shots, and then just playing on the fine edge of being a complete lunatic and a god, basically. And it's just, as soon as vital cooldowns go down, he knows and understands how safe he is, and he is able to basically arcane shift in aggressively and land multiple Mystic shots. And at this point, Betty was just, we talked about, G-Rex potentially being able to scale into the late game and, being able to have a stronger front line, but it wasn't like late game, but this was starting to get into the late game part of the phase. PK and Dempty were pretty tanky on both of their champions, and it just seemed like it didn't matter. Like you said, with the Call of the Forge God engage being snuffed by Sword Art on the Braum, the only other options you have is Empty trying to get a Flash Leap Counter-Strike combo onto Betty or Maple, and it's just not enough CC to frankly put down the Betty's Ezreal. So I agree. I think they need to ban it, or they need to first pick it for themselves. And if they're gonna play against Ezreal again, then they have to have much more forms of engage when they need the Braum basically taken away. Because
honestly, I think the key point is that Stitch on his Varus just fell too far behind, and we see in those late game fights. I think if Varus wasn't down like 2 items compared to the Ezreal, that game could have been much closer, I think. But especially in lane, Stitch was just too far behind, and he wasn't able to do enough damage to the front line of Flash Wolves.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you would think is when they were going through picks and bans, the Tark is a great pick, especially in the late game, getting those Cosmic Radiances down. But if we knew that Stitch was going to get that greedy early on in lane trying to battle for CS and then getting all in on, you would have almost wanted the Tom Kench instead to give him a little bit more protection. But you know, uh, it's always easier to what is it the it's not like rear view vision or
Retro.
retro.
It's yeah, it's always to say these things in retrospect, but that's something else they can adjust in game number two. Um, and so far, Mr. Rafa seems like my prediction has been correct.
Hmm. Quite, yeah. That's what we're. This has definitely been a shock. This is G Rex's first official loss, not series wise yet. We need to see if Base God Toys can you know adapt well in the pick and ban phase for the next game. But um, this is G Rex's first game loss they've had of the split, and against Flash Wolves it's not insanely surprising. The way they lost though was surprising, as Stitch has been really. I just want to.
Yeah, his performance this split has been almost flawless up until this game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this game, the entire bot lane just went boom. And, like
Boom.
when when both when both Carrick and Warriors with unsealed spellbook dies in lane pre 10 minutes, and Betty gets such a huge item lead against the Warriors. At that point, there's not really much he can do. It doesn't matter like how good your mid or top lane, how tanky your top lane jungle is, and how much pressure Candy can put out in a split push position. When your ADC is put that far behind, there's not much you can do. And it almost feels like Stitch was playing a little disrespectfully. He's had his Tristana game where he jumps in and access the engage. Um, and he jumps into the face of an Alistair. And to me, it just feels like he's playing disrespectfully against the Flash Wolves bot lane. And right here is part of the reason why I say that. Because this was a game. This was a fight Stitch and Koala chose to fight, and they just got collapsed on. And honestly, this was the play that lost them the game.
Yeah, and this was what had me frustrated. Is like you had Candy drawing pressure from Mugen and how to be on the bot side of the map, and instead of pushing either with their jungler as a 3-man unit or clearing the Baron control and getting Baron control and vision as a 3-man unit, they opted into trying to engage onto Ezreal and Braum when they're behind. That decision overall just seemed so bizarre and weird. Because if you're going to make that decision, I would imagine that PK and Empty were going to either you're going to have TP from PK to come in there, or Empty was going to make his way down and you were trying to bait a fight. But instead, they just weren't on the same page. And I don't know if, we haven't really seen the mental stability in a long series where, because like we said, G-Rex, this is their first game loss. We've seen them being able to come back from early game deficits, but we've never seen how they've reacted and performed in taking a game loss and being able to come back in a series.
Yeah. And in that situation, actually, it just reminds me of when I'm playing AD carry and I fall behind, and my team has the pressure in the side lane, and all I need to do is literally sit under mid turret and wave clear, and my team will carry me. But Stitch decides to fight the 2v2 and ends up losing his team the game. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it just feels like that's just disrespectful for Flash Wolves. Because I feel like he could have just gotten carried. Not to say that G-Rex does absolutely outskills Flash Wolves, because Flash Wolves team comp is very, very good. But looking at this bot lane siege, and again, the call of the forward shot gets denied by a sword art. And honestly, if Betty didn't have such a good performance on his Ezreal, the MVP for this game would definitely go to Sword Art on this Braum.
Yeah, this was just
Oh,
absolutely just.
every time I look at that Realm Warp by Candy, he actually started channeling the Realm Warp and then walks into the miasma, so it gets cancelled. That's just unfortunate. Maybe he intended to do that because I do think that. Yeah, actually, I think if that Realm Warp went through, they would have been able to fight this 3v4, but without the flank potential by Rise, they just couldn't lock down this Betty on this Ezreal.
No, they couldn't, and
Wow. PK flashes into the Mystic Shot and
yeah, the Betty was on fire this game,
yeah.
and but that the funny thing is that Betty. I mean, I don't want to downplay Betty, and I don't want to jinx G-Rex, but if I were Toys at this instance, you look at the past performances from Flash Wolves, and one of the things that did screw them over when they played against Team Afro was playing. Betty wasn't on Ezreal, he was on Varus, and then Team Afro had like a very natural team fighting composition with they had Ornn, they had Braum, they had Zac and Kog'Maw. I don't remember the mid lane, but it didn't seem to matter because Kog'Maw was just literally shredding everyone to pieces. And
Yep.
one thing that we did notice is that Flash Wolves prioritized in banning that Zac. Because the Zac, when they played against Team Afro, was one of the things that heavily screwed them over in terms of being engaged upon from long ranges. And I feel like, something like the Zac or maybe something like the Sejuani from Empty was available, you have more engaged tools combined with PK's Ornn. And not to say that, engage from Ornn isn't enough. In certain compositions and against certain compositions, it's sometimes all you need is just Call of the Forge God. But when there's Braum on the table,
Yep.
it's extremely hard to make that. So definitely the bot lane bans have to be shifted towards there if you want to run a similar composition. Now, if Toys and crew decide to run, they don't run Ornn and they run something like the Camille or the Vladimir, depending on what's up, then we can see a different composition in the making for sure. But
Yeah, I do think that they should like when Toys look at the pick and draft phase of game number 1, it's very clear what are some things that they need to adjust. They need to get Betty off of this Ezreal because that's the second time he's got put off 2v2 kills, and they need to take away the Braum or take away the Braum or have more waves of engagement besides Ornn. Um, and honestly, I think the main thing is honestly just Ezreal. Because if Stitch wasn't so far behind, he could be another form of engagement on as far as the chain of corruption. Even in the World Championships, that's how Samsung won against SKT because Ruler on Alvarez was able to flash forward and chain of corruption on you land the chain of corruption on Faker's karma. So I do think that if they didn't lose lane so hard, this game could have been really close.
yeah,
And honestly, yeah, I just think and actually,
that's not Maple. That's definitely not. Hey, there you go. Good job. Round of applause for LMS production crew. But hey, it's okay. At least they get the fancy graphics, and we're just bootlegging their stream for the English audience. But yeah, Betty definitely hands down deserving that MVP award there. I mean, this is looking at the damage charts, he had dealt almost 41,000 damage that entire game. Almost basically, I'm trying to remember the percentage.
I think that was quadruple the damage Stitch did on the Warriors. That says something.
Mm.
All right. I'm actually so hyped for this game. I hope Twice brings out brings out the belt in game number 2.
The first time we would have to see the belt from Toys. But if belts from coaches mean anything, whenever Coma brings out the belt, um, it definitely helps up the players and motivates them. I think one thing that I do want to see is when we've seen teams like J Team when they're down a loss in the first part of the series, and then one of their main star players brings out a pocket pick or a special pick, and in Fofo's case, when he got quote unquote ready to turn it around, he brings out Corky. And in LMS they say that whenever Fofo brings out Corky, he's mad, and you're gonna regret everything. And so I wonder if there's we haven't seen any quote unquote signature picks from any of these players yet. Candy has mainly been playing and spamming the Rise. Has had a couple games on, I believe, the Malzahar, and I think he also played one game of Cassiopeia, if I'm correct. No, so he's had most of his games on Rise, and he had one game each on Malzahar, Azir, and Zoe, and then Stitch himself has played mainly. Mainly just Tristana, yeah.
Yep, Tristana.
That was actually his first game on the Varus. He's played Tristana, and then one game each of Caitlyn, Kalista, and Sivir. So, maybe now that you mention it, that's other than Sivir, Varus is the first champion that he's played that has been immobile. So I don't know. Maybe you just need to. Tristana was banned, I believe. It was Tristana and Kha'Zix banned from Flash Wolves in the second ban phase, maybe. So I think that was a good adjustment. And maybe if you want Stitch on the Tristana on that comfort pick, then you're going to have to prioritize it in the first part of the ban phase. And Tristana does fairly well if you ban out Kalista and Ezreal. I mean, she has a better early phase against Varus and Kog'Maw, so we'll have to see for sure.
Yeah. I definitely think that. I think the spot lane has been actually key in Flash Wolves' victory in game number 1. And I think honestly it's mainly the Israel. I do think that as a whole, the Israel versus Warrior is pretty even. I even though we did say that it's mainly on Stitch, he misplayed, but part of the reason why Stitch died is actually Koala. He didn't actually try to block the Mystic Shot for his ADK, and I think he taken book out of Matt Life's. I don't know if you've seen the Reddit video, but Matt Life flashes in front of the Mystic Shot and blocks the Mystic Shot that would have killed his ADK. But Koala on the Taric, he still had flash up, and he decided not. He decided not to, I think. And that just let Stitch die. And after that, he actually burns so fast to try to get away from the Rengar gang, but dies anyways. So you almost have to think, what if Koala didn't bring the Unsealed Spellbook and instead he went with the Guardian? I think Stitch would be alive.
Yeah, I mean you can also ask the same question of why Stitch was walking up so aggressively into into a bush where Braum was and could and wasn't playing around Koala because Koala was focused on Betty in that 2v2 exchange, whereas he was. It seems like he was going for farm, or he was just I mean, to put all that blank, put the most of it onto Koala, I don't think is fair. I think you have to split it
Yeah,
evenly.
yeah.
Between
I think it is a 2v2 lane.
yeah
I think it's the blame goes to both of them
yeah
equally. I think.
yeah. Not what you're saying
Uh,
is wrong though, because I do think I mean that's definitely a way that Koala could have prevented that situation, and so even when your teammates mess up, you want to do everything you can, or potentially do to prevent misplays from happening, because sometimes and even in dire and messy situations, everyone committing to the same play, even if it's the worst play, is a lot better and has a higher potential of working out than everyone trying to do their own play what they think of is correct.
yeah, and that's the main difference between solo queue and 5v5 plays is that in solo queue when you see your teammates do dumb shit, you just don't follow up and let them die, right? But in 5v5, you always follow up on your team because it's always better for the entire team to commit to the wrong play than for part of the team to commit to that play and part of the team to not follow up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, we're going to be going into break for just a few minutes until we return for the second game. Until then, thank you guys for tuning in. This has definitely been this is just game one of the series, but if I have faith in my boy Toys and G Rex, we're gonna have an even more exciting game two from them.
个 TP 绕背哦。
这边要直接强抓 Mountain 包夹，前面 TP 也要来，这边要看一下延期的双子能撑多久。EQ 过来被一泽躲掉，德这边拉开距离还是没盖，加个闪现，可能冒牌的飞盾已经绑了，这边位置一泽还没有死，正在拉打，队友选择回去救他，打破消防局直接推到2个，德还在秀，前面2个人已经被留住了情况下，德也没有办法，只能倒下，而后续 HQ 被推了2个人，交闪拉开 ，MS 准备来支援，一个毒物都留了4个人，而且再加大绝，现在延期的人员是选择要继续往前打，不过扣个魔伤害都被布朗姆给吃下，手女顺利的收下茂凯之后，在前面连续想要秀3个，不过小安很吐，这个伤害很高，不过被留住了，这个惊人，只等死的命运还是没有。
2018年春季赛开打至今，最受瞩目的应该就是 M17对上。
All right, we are back, everyone. Chairman will be joining us in just a couple moments. Just have to restart his computer real quick, but no worries, we are not quite into the second pick and ban phase yet. Looks like they're just going over, I guess, a either team fight breakdown of one of the fights between Machi17 Esports and AHQ. This was, of course, the game where, if you did not see, Apex had the immaculate 1v2 outplay in the mid lane. It was prompted by an early game invade from Move and bot lane, forcing Mountain into kind of an unfavorable spot, and he tried to react by forcing a level 2 red buff gank in the mid lane, but Waco was not in a position to try and basically contest it. He got super low, he got chunked really hard, and then, oh man, it was just a disaster. So, but let's see if we can see what's going on here. Oh, these are some wonderful graphics. Just being able to show the summoner spell cooldown. This is, I would imagine this is like just as high quality as the breakdown that Riot casters Jat and Zyrene do for the NA LCS. And then sometimes they'll bring in plays from all over the world, such as LCK, EU LCS, LPL even sometimes as well.
但 AHQ 为了这个击杀已经花了太多的资源和时间。此时 Apex 的蛇女终于赶到，先撒了剧毒瘴气，让 AHQ 的全部成员都无法使用位移技能。在 AHQ 被迫反打时 ，Dreamer 纵身一跃，举起令他们绝望的雄心重盾，挡下了所有的伤害，抵定了这场游戏的风向。最终更以2-0结束了比赛，拿下了队史第1次击败 AHQ 的成就。我是汤米，下次的会战神之眼再见。
欢迎各位回来。
All right, and now we are back, and Chairman has also back as well. Welcome back, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, I am back. Pretty lucky timing there. My computer crashes right as we go into break.
Yeah, at this point, there's 3 things that you can expect to be consistent in life. 1, water to be good for you. 2, I would say death is inevitable. And then 3, Chairman's computer crashing at least once during an unofficial LMS English broadcast stream.
Oh, man. Anyways, I'm back now. Let's talk some League of Legends.
Yeah.
And game number 2, we're definitely looking to see the Ezreal have a much higher priority this game. So actually, first ban will be Gameplank by GRX, and Zoe banned away from Candy. So it seems like so far both teams have just been swapping bans from game compared to game number 1.
Yeah, but this is an interesting situation that GRX is in because they're now first pick this time around. So I wonder if they force Flash Wolves into banning the Ezreal away, and then, or if they don't ban Ezreal, well, okay, yeah, they ban Ezreal, so they're already well aware of it. They're going to respect Stitch's capability of trying to play it, so, but that does allow G-Rex to actually, a flexibility of not having to ban Ezreal, and they're going to use that open slot to actually ban the Gnar away from Hanabi. So these are definitely bans that I was not expecting. I didn't think the Vlad was necessarily a problem. I think it was pretty well contained, and it was only it only succeeded because Betty was doing so well, and then all the focus was on the Betty, and Hanabi was able to get super heavy dives. But G-Rex, they actually go with the first, the Ornn pick here. Now, they have to remember that Sword Art did play a pretty mean Braum and scuffing a lot of the engages. So if G-Rex, since they committed with this Ornn, I want to see more engage being drafted from them. Sejuani is still currently up at the moment. I want to see MT either going for at least the Sedge, or maybe even the Jarvan, or the Zac is also up as well. Because if you just rely on the Ornn engagement and Flash Wolves pick up Braum in the second rotation, then it's going to scuff the Call of the Forge God engage attempts in every single team fight.
Yeah, and at this point, if Flash Wolves do lock in the Zir and the Poppy, I actually want to see higher priority onto the Braum. Actually, Kha'Zix is locked in for Flash
I was
Wolves.
about to say, we haven't seen Poppy in like so long. There's just unfortunately better tanks and better junglers, or that you would want to put Poppy in. So the Mugen.
Yeah, but at this point, all the tier 1 top laners are gone. Gameplank is banned away, Nara is banned away, Vladimir and Camille are banned away, and Ornn is first picked by G-Rex. So the only the only top laners we've seen so far, we've seen Poppy in Korea. I think who is it? I think it was Kongru Monsters that played it. No, it was MVP that played it into Ornn. Didn't quite work out. You've got Maokai, who is just a flat out tank, but I don't think I think Ornn is just a flat out better version of Maokai at this point.
Yeah.
So looks like Flash Wolves will be locking in the Taric, and G-Rex, like I said, they prioritize the Braum and takes it away from Sword Art.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they. I honestly think Flash Wolves are being a little carefree of not taking that Braum when they had the chance. I don't think that Kha'Zix's priority is as strong as they think it would have been. But I mean, we'll have to see how Mugen can perform. They now have the opportunity to start banning out a lot of the jungle pool from empty. But I mean, now that you have the Braum, you can rely on the Call of the Forge God ultimates as your main form of engage, even if it's the only true form of engage from this team and in these team fights. So you don't necessarily have to make sure that Empty gets onto the Zac or the Sedge. They have already banned the J4 away from Empty, so if he wants to, he can always opt into the Jax, which does pretty decent into the Kha'Zix and being able to not get blown up right away and invades.
Yeah, but currently I actually don't like the bans from Flash Wolves right now, because that leaves up Sejuani and the Zac. If G-Rex is looking for more forms of engagement, right? And on the side of G-Rex, they've banned out Maokai and and Tristana actually.
Whoa, that's
So I think that leaves up bars. Kalissa is still open.
Yeah, wait a minute. What's this Tristana ban?
I do think that Betty has been much more comfortable on champions with a dash. So I can see it being a good ban, but the only picks left for Dashy to Poppy. There's no more tanky top laners, and with Flash Wolves' current composition, they really need the tank, because they already have enough damage in the Zir and the Sivir.
I've in certain there's regions where they've actually picked Nautilus top, and Nautilus has been kind of under the radar for quite a while, but his mana costs are not as forgiving as they used to be. But if you wanted to pick that, you also of course have the Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath has still also been played in multiple team compositions in the mainly EU and NALCS. You also have Shen, because he's been able to flex to other parts of the. It's kind of weird thinking about other tank top laners, because we've seen this top lane like trifecta of basically the three carries, Camille, Gangplank, and Vladimir, the one tank in Ornn, and then the blind pick in Gnar. And then after that, you think of like Maokai, and then after that, you're like, wait, there's more top laners that exist? Hello?
Yeah, I am pretty curious as to the Jax pick though. I think the reason why GRX picked Jax here over something like the Zac or the Sejuani is because they wanted something that can stand up to the Kazakhs in the jungle. And if they pick the Sejuani or Zac here, I think Moonjin can just invade all day every day, and then just bully uh bully the tank jungler out of his own jungle. But so I did actually like the Jax pick from Empty here, and Stitch actually locks in the Caitlyn. Um, Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Because in the Caitlyn Sivir matchup, it used to be that Caitlyn can bully the Sivir because Caitlyn outskills him or outranges Sivir really well. But at this point, um, in the current meta at least, I think Sivir just outpushes the Caitlyn. And eventually Caitlyn just runs out of mana, and I'm expecting Sivir to run the unsealed spellbook. So she's gonna have consistent pressure onto the Caitlyn, I think, as far as wave management or as far as waves go. So
We're
I'm
actually
excited.
getting a
Excited
pause
to
here.
see.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Technical difficulties from what looks like to be the side of potentially G-Rex, unless Muujin might be having some computer issues. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh the stream real quick. Make sure we're not lagging on my end here.
So talking about the team comps again, I actually really like I do like the Shen pick in combination with the Kazakhs, because part of the reason why a lot of times we don't see Shen prioritize anymore because without a diver, the Shen node doesn't actually do that much. Um, but in combination with the Kazakhs, they can pull off pretty interesting plays like the submarine plays, using the stealth on the Kazakhs to get Shen into fights. So definitely interested to see if actually we see Sword Art actually has the what's the mastery called?
Guardian.
Uh,
Or
no,
oh,
no,
Glacial
Sword
Augment.
Art. Yeah, Glacial Augment.
So that's something that we've seen on a lot of Tom Kench supports, as that first auto is very important in being able to lock up for the potential all-in from a Devour, using the Tongue Lash to then get an easy stun or an additional slow. But I wonder how Sword Art plays it with Taric. He does, whenever he uses spells, his passive does give him the 2 fast autos. For extra damage. So I wonder maybe if you like land the dazzle and then walk up and then get the 2 autos, that first auto will get the 45% slow level 1 in melee form. That could be something that's potential in trying to allow Betty to kite away from Stitch if he's able to land the dazzle on to Caitlyn and Braum. One thing I do want to talk about as well is what are the engagement forms on Flash Wolves, because if this is a composition that snowballs, if this Kha'Zix gets ahead, then yeah, even though they don't really have like strong forms of engage, no like real hard CC, mainly you want Muujin to be diving the backline of Stitch and Candy, using the Cosmic Radiance for an invulnerability to get in there without being punished. And then you also have Hanabi potentially ulting onto Muujin to get an AoE taunt. And then you can have Betty using on the hunt movement speed to basically just power Muujin and Maple in there. However, if Flash Wolves falls behind on this composition, they don't have, other than Emperor's Divide and on the hunt, they don't have real strong disengage, and they don't really, I mean, you can't really engage onto a team that has 3 frontliners and then pretty safe range AD carry in Stitch, and then of course Rise. So this Flash Wolves composition is relying heavily on these lanes winning. Hopefully Muujin then can invade and then get a lead for himself, and then if he picks up kills, then it's a different story, and then we just see Flash Wolves like running over. And the nice thing though about Flash Wolves in this composition as well is that even if they lose early on, between Azir and Sivir, these 2 champions are probably the best forms of wave clear in the game. If they had Gangplank in the top lane, it just almost would have been nearly impossible to try and close this game out. And we even saw that super long game. Actually, we're going to have to put that hold. Epti is going to go in for the kill onto Maple. Is going to force both the cleanse and flash. Maple actually was not able to shift Sands out there quite fast. So nicely done from... Nicely done from Maple there. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and quickly refresh, because me and Chairman are not quite on the same page here. But yeah, that was a nice gank attempt. Nice gank from Empty, burning both of Maple's sums there.
Yeah, actually, going back to the topic of the team compositions, I actually disagree with what you said about Flash Wolves having to be ahead, because I do think that Azir and Sivir are some of the best scaling carries you can have on the side of Flash Wolves. Yeah, sure, Kha'Zix doesn't scale that well, but Shen should be able to split push against his Ornn. So in the late game, I do think that Flash Wolves, they have the better carries on their side.
Well, to clarify, I meant like in terms of engagement. Like if you don't snowball, you can't just like walk up to them. But actually, Empty's gonna go for a gank onto Hanabi, but using that Twilight Shroud to effectiveness will be able to block the attacks from Empty. So
Betty?
Wait, Betty just TP to the top lane, and now we have
That's actually hilarious.
Wow, so the TP play from Betty is actually able to save the life of Hanabi, but I've never seen a TP play like that before where the...
I think they just swapped lanes. They're swapping lanes. Hanabi's walking bot.
This is an interesting audible here from Flash Wolves, now sending Betty to the top lane, and PK is going to have to answer with his own TP as Hanabi just casually walks bot lane as he doesn't feel like he is pressured to save his turret. But because of that, they've actually taken almost half of the turret's health, and it's going to be even more if Hanabi can't even walk up to defend this turret. I think this is... I don't know if this is a misplay from Flash Wolves or just a lack of communication on how much turret damage they've suffered, but now Call of the Forge Gods was used by PK. He's trying to just wave clear this out. What is Sword Art doing? He's trying to get vision on the top side of the map with Muujin, but because there's so much hesitancy, Flash Wolves just lose first turret straight up.
Yeah, they had to do it because MT, with some really great early pressure onto the mid and the top lane, was able to force out actually Betty to TP to the top lane, and that was just purely reactive play from Betty, because if he didn't TP, Hanabi would have died right there. But TPing top lane just cost Flash Wolves their first turret. But looking at the levels, Muujin he was almost 2 levels up on Empty. So at least Flash Wolves has that going for them.
Well, that makes sense. Empty has been prioritizing ganking early on so far versus Mugen has been just straight up power farming. Actually, an Engage is coming onto the top side of the map. Hanabi using that Stand United to teleport onto the top lane. It's a 2v4, but the 4-man knockup is going to delay them for a while. Hanabi does have the stopwatch, though, going to be able to make that turret dive successful. Maple even here in first blood goes to Sword Art, but now Candy is here trying to defend the turret, and they will not be able to take it just quite yet. Empty is also in the shadows looking to make a leap strike, but Koala, even though lands the Winter's Bite onto Maple, is going to shift the sands away to safety, and that will be the end of that. And actually, I lied. Koala is fancying a little bit of onto Sword Art. He does have flash, and he's going to respect that danger and flash away to safety.
That dive, sure, they got a kill on PK, but honestly, this is a little troublesome because it took 5 members to get a single kill, and they weren't even able to get the turret off of that.
God.
PK with a 4-man knockup, but against 5 people and a lot of stopwatches, not much they can do. And actually, Candy flashes over the wall, and this is a little troublesome for Last Wolves because they are losing pressure as far as the tower pushing game goes. But actually, we have a pause here.
Another pause. Another one bites the dust.
Another one.
Another. You smart. You loyal. Shout out to DJ Colin. Oh no, but like I don't think that Flash Wolves have to be this aggressive in the push. Like, I mean, yes, they, we talked about how if they don't snowball the Kazakhs, then it's hard to make these engage attempts, because even if you use the Kazakh Radiance and you use the Stand United onto the Kazakhs, if he's not ahead and he can't really pop anyone, even when he's invulnerable and has billions of shields for about, solid 3 or 4 seconds, then, he can't really do anything. But, like we've both agreed upon, is that Maple and Betty are some of the best wave clearing champions in the game. You can always play for late game from Flash Wolves if you need to. So I'm not sure, like, if they really feel that they have to force that turret situation, and, with all 5 members, PK was able to just play that so well, recognizing that he can just hit the turret with his face and knock up all 4 members. And so far, Stitch has been probably the largest benefactor of that whole trade, because during that whole time, only Candy and Empty roamed up to help Koala and PK, and Stitch was just free farming on the bot side of the map.
Yep, and now Flash Wolves, they're getting dived here.
Oh, Empty's going to line up the Counter-Strike. Only lands it on the Sword Art. Betty is just trying to stay alive under his own tower, but the Call of the Forge God double knockup will come, and Betty is going to go down. Empty being able to finish off Sword Art as well. Candy has used the Realm Warp to TP up to the top lane. Mugen is going to stealth his way out of there. Candy just zoning him off, but looks like Empty, Stitch, and PK will stay in this top lane and be able to take this top inner turret.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is pretty worrisome because, again, going back to your point about Flash Wolves not having to do this, I feel like this is reactive play. Like the past 6 minutes has been purely reactive from Flash Wolves, and now finally they're able to take the mid tier 1 turret, but the top tier 2 turret is gone.
So looking at this play, Mugen is on the top side of the map, but PK, notice how he is the first one to make the TP play, and now Hanabi finally reacts, but because the turret goes down, his TP is actually just wasted, and since he doesn't have Stand United up, there's no way for him to be able to come to the top side of the map, and I think it was just a poor decision from Hanabi trying to TP onto the turret when it was so low, when there is plenty of wards around that he could have also TP'd to, and maybe we could have looked at a different fight.
Yeah, but again, I feel like even if he was there, I feel like Flash Wolf still loses that fight because all 5 members from PK was there, or not PK, from G-Rex was there, including Candy. Um, but yeah, I feel like G-Rex is just winning the tower pushing game. Sure, Flash Wolves got the mid tier 1 turret, which is great in my opinion. The mid tier 1 turret is probably the most important tier 1 turret of all time, or of all the outer turrets. But that was in return for 3 turrets for G-Rex.
Indeed. And we're just looking at a completely different game here. You know, in the first game, Stitch and Koala Stitch just straight up got outplayed in the 2v2 and allowed Betty to snowball super hard. But Betty, not on this Ezreal, not on the Sivir, he hasn't done poorly in the 2v2, but Stitch has had a better time, and then his performance or his momentum lead not being down, and in fact it's being positive this time around, has basically led to a different form of G-Rex being played, something more similar that we've seen all split.
Yeah, and I do think that everything started with Empty making the proactive play, make a gank onto Maple, burning both summers, and then threatening a dive onto Honeybee on his chin, and that forced Betty's TP out. And once Betty's TP is out, Stitch was able to actually we see Candy going aggressive on
Wow,
Betty here,
well,
but
Bandy's just taking a huge chunk of damage from Candy. Has to respect the rise. He does have Sword Art on his support, but it's still Candy does damage.
yeah, and now we see PK actually still has to ignite. So I do think Candy will be taking over the split pushing responsibility, and Hanami is forced to TP to defend the mid turret.
Yeah, Call of the Forge Guard is coming out and is going to land. 2-man knockup onto Maple and Hanabi. They're not going to be able to defend this turret for long. They do not have Betty here to wave clear, and Maple is trying his best, but he can't get in range, and that's the mid outer turret going down for G-Rex, both of them being taken from both teams. Can we see more pushing from G-Rex in the mid lane, or are they going to start going different ways?
And to be honest, this game feels like the exact opposite of what happened last game. You know, last game Stitch, the bot lane of G-Rex just went boom. You know, and this game I feel like Flash Wolves bot lane went boom, and both games, the winning team is just taking turrets and making the proactive play. And we'll see if G-Rex can finish out this game.
Yeah, all that pressure towards the top side of the map, trying the desperation to try and take that turret, and the immaculate defense by PK and Koala under that dive was so good for Stitch, because with all that free time in the bot lane, he amassed himself a huge CS lead. Now that Betty has had a lot more time to try and catch back up, he is trying to even out that CS lead. But we already see that he has the fully Infinity Edge, he has Berserker Greaves, and he has a Zeo completed, whereas Betty, he's still on just components. He has a BF sword, he has a Caulfield's, and then 2 daggers. Like, no completed items yet so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel it's kind of funny how this game is almost the direct opposite of what happened last game.
Yeah, and it goes to show that just like Betty and Stitch are not necessarily better. There's no one player better than each other, and I mean both of these guys are super talented, but it really comes down to how the team plays around and sets them up for success.
Yeah, and also how the picks work out. You know, last game, Betty on the Ezreal. Honestly, I feel like Betty performs. He only performs super well on the Ezreal. And so far, I feel like I haven't seen Betty succeed on any other champion. So it's a little worrying for Flash Wolves, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to look at Betty's prior champions to other than the Ezreal, and if I had the stats here somewhere, but I was just trying. I mean, if anything, he didn't look as impressive as he does on the Ezreal. It's not that he wasn't doing poorly on, and so see, Tristana, Kalista, and Varus. And yeah, so those were his other champions that he's played. And I mean, he won with Tristana and he won with Kalista. Technically, he lost with Varus against the Team Afro, but like, you know, the Tristana Kalista looked nowhere near as dominant as his two Ezreal games we've seen so far.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm questioning whether Betty can play these AD carries with no mobility, because at least actually Mugen might be catching Stitch here.
Oh, he's going to try to get a lot of damage, but the Targon's shield and healing from Stitch is actually keeping himself alive from Mugen, but Cosmic Radiance will come out, and finally Stitch does go down. Koala has to leave his poor ADC behind as he's using Flash and Exhaust to get himself away, but PK is going to try and dissuade even more engage attempts from Maple onto that side of the fight, but nice pick from Mugen in the jungle there.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed at Stitch there. He still has Flash, and I feel like if he just flashed early, he could have gotten out of that situation.
Is that double lift?
Is that the opposite of Wild Turtle? We actually see the realm work coming in from Candy here, and Betty might be in trouble.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of mana. He might have one mana cost for the spell shield, but Candy's actually not going to be able to proc it, and he flashes over the wall. There's nothing to protect Betty now. Using that root to put him in place, Betty will be able to flash over the wall, however, and he gets away safely. Actually, Betty was able to sidestep a couple of the overloads from Candy there. Nicely played as he's able to get it out safe.
Yeah, but that's flash burn for both Candy as well as Betty. So 19 minutes in, G-Rex is up around 3,000 gold. The kill is 2 for 2, and G-Rex is starting to set up vision around the Baron area. And next dragon is alive is actually the Inferno, so I would expect both teams to try to contest this next dragon.
Indeed. Being able to pick up the Scuttle Crab there on the river. Actually, Ace in the Hole is going to be thrown down. No damage on the Maple as Sword Art was able to cast Bastion, and along with the shield from the Shifting Sands, it basically negates Ace in the Hole. So this is ultimate cooldown from Stitch. It feels bad, man.
Now Baron is alive now. So I don't think either team is ahead enough to actually rush this down. But it's definitely going to be the point of contention as far as Vision Wars go for both of these teams.
Yeah, Mugen is actually able to walk into this Baron pit for free as MT is trying to clear out his top side of the jungle, not there to contest Vision, even though Stitch and Koala were pushing up at the top side of the map. So I wonder, actually Stitch and Koala are trying to bait Betty in here. I don't know if Betty saw them walking into the bush. He might greet out for this wave. Stitch and Koala really want this to happen, but Mugen is also here, and now they get baited into the engage, but Betty is going to pop the on the hunt just to make sure that he doesn't get caught out. And so Mugen being able to dissuade and engage, but thankfully Koala and Stitch don't burn anything as important as the on the hunt. Empty, ooh, gotta be careful of that Baron.
Yeah, those acid spits do a lot of damage at this point in the game.
Kenny just clearing out some Kentucky Fried Chicken Raptors here. He might be able to complete what potentially looks like. See, he has a needlessly large rod. He's gonna complete the Seraph's Embrace and get his Ionian Boots. He's now looking at about almost 30% CDR. If he has Transcendence Mastery, he will have the full 40% CDR. So he's kind of at maximum spell casting power, maximum cooldown reduction on his Overload and his Spell Flux, which are the key to being able to weave in all those amazing combos. Actually, G-Rex are going to take an opportunity to take the Infernal Dragon while Flash Wolves don't really have a chance to take anything in trade. And so that's just a free Infernal Dragon from G-Rex. A nice, just a good macro call there. And
Yeah, and you can see that's where Flash Wolves is lacking right now, is that they don't really have the wave control to have free reign on the entire map as opposed to G-Rex. And now they're sweeping around the Baron area to clear out some vision from G-Rex. And Stitch here might need to be careful. Moonjin is in the top side, but it looks like he's going to play it safe and walk back.
yeah, they do have all 4 members on the top side of the map. Mujin's going to be using that Void Assault passive to stealth around the jungle, being able to pick up any information that he can find on the whereabouts of G-Rex here. Where is PK? I was trying to see where he was. He's actually on the bottom side of the map, and he's going to get chased down by Flash Wolves. But on the top side of the map, Empty is calling for the Baron, and it looks like some of the Flash Wolves members are starting to duck and run. Mujin is the only one by the Baron pit. PK is trying to stall this as long as he can. He's going super low, using the Unstoppable as best as he can, but the Call of the Forge God will not be enough. But now, Empty is trying to solo down this Baron along with the rest of the Flash Wolves. They're trying to stall Mujin away. Hanabi is going to taunt up the rest of 3 members, and they're going to have to call Baron off for just a moment, and it looks like they won't be able to take it now. Cosmic Radiance is going to give them the tankiness they need. Koala flashing just in time as Sword Art flashes for the Dazzle, but Koala, he's stepping a little too far forward. He's going to be able to jump to Stitch using the Glacial Fissure to deny that engage from Hanabi. Maple is lurking around the wings, trying to find if he can pick up any members on the other side of the jungle. Empty is now just running for his life. I don't know if he's going to be able to stall this. He's going to back. Maybe he can try to outplay. Oh, no. He's surrounded by 3 members. He's going to try to deny this as long as he can. Stopwatch. He's going golden, but he eventually goes down to Hanabi. Mujin is content with that pickup kill, and now they're going to try to turn on to the Baron. They do have the vision control available, but,
oh no.
But PK is up. Wait, Dazzle lands on the 2. Oh, the Emperor's Wall, the shifting sands into the shuffle. Maple is going to be able to pick up the kill on the Stitch. Mujin on the Candy. Oh, man, what a disaster play from G-Rex, and just amazing pickup from Flash Wolves. And look at that, the team 5-man Baron recall in sync. Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah, everything started actually with Maple trying to make a play onto PK. And that was really smart because they know Henry does have the TP and the Stand United to get back to the Baron fight. So they were successfully able to dive PK under the turret, kill him, and then remove any possibility of a TP, and then using like Stand United onto Mujin to get back into the Baron fight and successfully contest the Baron. And after that, once Empty got caught out in the enemy jungle, and then Sword Art was able to land the 2-man Dazzle onto Candy and Stitch. I feel like at this point, G-Rex is just, they're losing pressure. And now we see PK getting picked off again.
Oh, he doesn't have flash from the prior pickoff, and he's just gonna die. It's just, I don't know. That's a little, I don't even know. This is looking more Monka-esque as the minutes go on in this game.
Yeah, honestly, I think that was just a great play by Flash Wolves to start everything off. And definitely mistakes by Stitch and Candy getting caught by the Tech Dazzle. But credits to Flash Wolves making a smart macro play. And Maple here, along with Hanabi, this is the second target that he's taking here.
Yeah. And I kind of want to, I don't know. Like, I'm a little confused as how Candy and Stitch, they weren't even recalling. They were just in the bush, and then Sword Art just walked up with the Dazzle. And it's not like the Dazzle goes off instantaneously. So I wonder if they just were, like, asleep at the wheel, or if they were window shopping, or they just weren't looking. Anyway, Call of the Forge God is going to might be able to catch out Maple, but he's going to flash into the Cosmic Radiance to give himself that safety. That Call of the Forge is going to be down for quite some time. It's not quite level 16 where it has the ridiculous 30-second cooldown yet, but it does give G-Rex some breathing room in the mid lane, but Betty's going to start pushing in onto the top side of the map, and with the Baron buff, it's going to make that job even easier. Koala is now also here to try and defend that turret, but it's not going to be enough as Muujin and Betty is just going to be able to take this top inner turret.
Yeah, overall, great macro plays by Flash Wolves. And honestly, at this point, GRX is just gonna stop the bleeding, try to defend their inner turrets, and maybe look for fights on their terms because they're starting to get outscaled.
Yeah, I agree. They just have to defend what they can. They cannot fight with Baron minions up because if they try to fight, more than likely they're going to be split up as multiple members are going to be trying to defend all three lanes. They have to just team fight as normal. I think we have not really seen G-Rex win a fight when members are not there. And all the engages early on that they were able to attempt, they either had all 5 members being able to fight Flash Wolves on a 5v5 terms, or they had a numbers advantage. And, it's a lot easier to be able to threaten people with the Call of the Forge God when your whole team is there to support you, and versus having the rest of their team dive you under turret.
Yeah, and at this point, you almost have to question whether first picking this Ornn is worth it, because so far the Ornn hasn't done that much for G-Rex. And because Ornn got dove by the Shen, and Shen has to stay united, actually Muujin runs into Empty here.
But Empty doesn't even see him because with the way that Kha'Zix works stealth is it doesn't get revealed when you're close by champions as Camouflage does. So Empty just sees a ward popping randomly into the bush, and it's almost like Jump Scare 2.0, where you're just like, oh my god, where did that come from? Oh man. I think I would have... I don't know. If I saw a ward just pop into my face, that would be pretty frightening, as they say.
Yeah, I agree. But Baron buff has been worn out, and GX has all 3 inhibitors remaining, or all 3 inhibitor turrets, so they should have a much easier time defending these. And Flash Wolves, on their side, if they want to get an inhibitor turret, I think they will have to do it through split pushing, because 5-on-5 setting is just so difficult to siege against the Caitlyn.
Flash Wolves do have a wave clear strength in the Riot, or the Sivir and the Azir, but like you said, the Stitch on this Caitlyn can wave clear safely from a distance. Now having that 4 items in Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire, and Lord Dominic's Regards, Stitch is definitely strong, and if he's able to be peeled for, and if they're able to just fight in a 5v5 team setting, I wouldn't be surprised if G-Rex are able to win. It's just Caitlyn is at the point where she's not really in that power trough of being kind of useless with just the Infinity Edge only being used for siege potential. She can now put out decent damage even against something of the likes of Sivir. And Sivir is still trying to build what seems like her Infinity Edge with that BF sword. So it is you have to start picking these fights and trying to find engages where they're sieging onto you and you can try to pick them off. But every time that they have attempted, they've either just used Flash and they've not been able to capitalize it, or the Cosmic Radiance from Sword Art has been able to keep them alive.
32 minutes in, Flash Wolves now have a 5k gold lead over G-Rex, and looking at itemizations, and CS, Maple is actually up around 50 CS onto Candy. Actually, Muujin might be in a little bit of a trouble.
Candy's just going to poke him down a little bit, but Ace in the Hole will be blocked by Betty. So, no real threat to Muujin. Candy wasn't really in the greatest spot either, as he was all by himself. Koala going to use the blast cone to get himself away. And Mugen trying to use Hanabi Stand United to get himself into the fray, but they're able to thankfully disengage the fight on G-Rex's side. They will not really gain anything from there, but Baron is up at this point, and they're going to try to retreat back into the controlled vision parts. Can they force an error by using the face check? But Mugen actually gets clicked by the Winter's Bite, and now Mugen might be in a big trouble. Gets knocked up by the Call of the Forge God, but is going to use the QSS to cleanse and leap away. Now, G-Rex might have a potential for a rotation here. If they can clear out the mid wave and get that priority going, they might be able to rotate over to the Baron. But Mugen is over still on this side defending, using the bushes to his advantage as he's been able to stealth check in and out. Hanabi is waiting at base. He might be waiting for a TP flank, but PK does have to go to the bot side of the map as the wave is pushing in. And they're going to have to react to this, and Flash Wolves are going to start out the Baron. They're going to make that call. PK has no choice, but he's going to have to TP in if he wants to be part of this fight. But the Baron is burning too fast, and they're not even having a chance to get away. Kenny uses Realm Warp as a distraction. Call of the Forge God lands onto one. Sword Art is taking a lot of damage with the Cosmic Radiance. Will save his life. Redemption will also give him a second lease of life. But Maple also getting chunked out. Mugen is now going to land onto Stitch. Can he get away? He flashes over the wall. He's now safe. He's now behind his line. Now he can clean up this fight. And here is the fight for G-Rex. They're trying to peel off, but actually Stitch gets popped by the bouncing blades from Sivir. And in what seemed like a favorable fight from G-Rex actually turns into a quadra kill from Maple.
Yeah, Maple through that entire fight was just able to free hit only Azir using those Sand Soldiers, and quadra kill from Maple. And that's at least an inhibitor, and I don't think that's game yet, but
we have 20 seconds on the Koala. We're going to have to see how bold Flash Wolves do feel about this. They have Stand United on Hanabi coming up in 14 seconds. They actually might be able to push for here. Koala has 8 seconds, and they're actually bringing this down, this turret, insanely fast with the Baron buffed minions. Can Koala be a hero and stall this out? Sword Art is incredibly low. Sword Art is calling for it to go off, and it's not going to be game quite yet, but Koala wants to punish this. He doesn't have Flash, but he does have Glacial Fissure in about 10 seconds. Maybe he can get it. And they're trying to chase on the Sword Art so bad. Empty wants this. The Realm Warp is going to come in from Candy. They're actually chasing for this. Call of the Forge Guard is going to come out, land on the Sword Art, and now Hanabi and Mugen are here, but Sword Art cannot defend it. But meanwhile, Maple has snuck his way back into the base. Hanabi is using Stand United. What are you doing, G-Rex? You chased a Taric, and you just threw away the game. And just that, Flash Wolves X Peke G-Rex and win the game. Oh my god. Wait a minute.
See Flash Wolves cracking up on your screen here. Man, that was a hilarious ending, but poor Sword Art draws out almost the entire team of G-Rex, and Hanabi as well as Maple on the Azir just was able to just finish the game.
Oh my god.
And stern faces on the face of G-Rex. That was a pretty crushing defeat. Oh man.
Can I get some Monka S's in the chat? That was, oh my god. What in the world was that? Wait.
Poor Sword Art. He was like, why are your entire team chasing me? Please let me go. But Maple, utilizing the fact that the entire team of G-Rex is chasing after his support, and finishes up the game. Clean 2-0 from Flash Wolves.
Man,
what did I say? Flash Wolves winning this game. Called it.
See, I thought that Flash Wolves was gonna be the easy answer, and I was like, well, you know what, G-Rex, you're gonna be the underdogs here, and then they just, oh my god, I don't even know, man. That's just Monka S right there. And that last fight where Maple got the quadra kill, he was free hitting, but actually Stitch was in a position to carry that fight. But I think what actually clipped him was a bouncing crit blade Oh
Yep.
my god, that feels
That's
so
just
bad.
yeah. That's just so unlucky.
Yeah, but that's the
I
power of Sivir right there.
yeah, I thought Stitch was gonna be able to clean up that fight because he was able to flash over the wall and get to safety, and at that point, G-Rex still had front lines still alive, but Azir, especially in 25 minutes, 30 minutes, at 25, 30 minutes with items completed, just does so much damage. And Maple carrying his team to victory there.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think kudos to G-Rex. They're still a relatively new team with their, they still, I do think they still have communication issues. And Toys, I think he made some, in my opinion, really good adaptations in the second game's pick and ban phase. But and the early game for G-Rex in game number 2, um, they almost started to snowball, but because some brilliant plays by Maple, especially catching out PK in the bot lane and then having Hanabi using the Stand United to contest the Baron buff. So I think that was a great macro play by Flash Wolves, and that's honestly what won them the game because they were successfully able to get a free pick onto PK, and because the Baron buff at around 25 minutes still hurts a lot for G-Rex. Um, they had to scatter, and they ended up with Empty being caught, and then Stitch and Candy being caught by Swordar's Taric.
Yeah.
After that, it was all downhill for G-Rex.
Yeah. Unfortunately for G-Rex, they were not able to burn down the Baron fast enough when PK was caught on the side of the map. Because I thought that was a clear opportunity for G-Rex to be able to trade the Baron for free. But Muujin was threat enough to be able to stall the Baron and force Koala to not tank for Empty so that Empty could do more damage to the Baron. And instead, it just caused messiness. The Baron was at 2,500 health. And I feel like if you continue it for 3 more seconds, maybe you can get it. But the fear...
Yeah, I think at that point you just need to 50-50 it because your top laner already died. And extended fight, you're not gonna win because Maple's coming. So I honestly think they just needed to 50-50 that Baron.
Yeah.
And if they get it, that's great. And they can get out with as many Baron buffs as they can, but they didn't end up getting the Baron. Basically all 5 members died running in one by one, and then Flash Wolves was just able to get the free Baron and end the game off of that.
Yeah, and one thing that is kind of was really significant about this series and G-Rex, the way they looked, is that we've seen G-Rex be down an early game and come back in the late game, but there's a way that Flash was played around them where that it put G-Rex either there's intimidation on the G-Rex like never before against other teams, but they just the confidence that G-Rex has normally had even when behind was just not there. And normally I would have imagined that they would have just committed to that and just hoped for the best, but they played scared. They hesitated after taking Baron to about 2,500 HP, and they tried to duck and cover and run, and there was a lot of hesitancy and honestly just indecisiveness from G-Rex, and like, do we peel? Do we try to re-engage the fight? Do we try to duck and run? Do we fight it out? And then the only time they seemed somewhat decisive in fights was that one last engaged in the middle. But by that time, Betty was far enough on the Sivir where the bouncing crits on the Ricochet blades were gonna rip through the entire team. And so I feel like the confidence to take those fights there and set up those team fights was a little too late. And unfortunately for G-Rex, it's over.
To be fair for G-Rex, though, most of the top tier Korean teams, they never want to get into a situation of a 50-50 Baron. So they just peel off completely. In that situation, when in that specific situation, I do think they tried to play it smart, but I do think that they just needed to be decisive and either and just finish the Baron. I think finishing the Baron 50-50, the Baron was the right play in that specific circumstance. Let's see the replay here. So MT is actually taking up the turret, the Baron here, and they completely get off of the Baron, and because of the cosmic radiance, and because the Baron damage, T-Rex is just they don't have enough health and enough damage to fight fight the 4-on-4 against Flash Wolves. And at this point, Azir is actually collapsing. So the entirety of G-Rex and here MT gets caught out. And yeah, that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, that's just. Oh, and this was just absolutely unforgivable right here. Just how does that even happen? It just. Oh.
Oh, the Moonjin was stealth. Wow, what a
Oh, you're right. Okay, you know what? Okay,
yeah.
I take that back. That's so. I was about to say, it's hard to. Sometimes you forget that when you're in the spectator mode, you get to see everything, and so therefore you're like, what? That he just walked up for free. But you're right. The Void Assault was on the Kazakhs, and in true stealth, they're not able to see, and so basically they were just point blanked, stunned, dazzled, without even realizing that they had been approached. So that was actually a really nice play.
That's really a smart play by Sword Art to have the flexibility of using the Kazakhs as a tool to stun both the carries in Stitch and Candy.
That's actually
Uh,
like now
yeah,
that we know that the stealth was on, that's actually a fucking sick play. Like excuse
yeah.
the language, but holy moly.
I'm actually so impressed by Sword Art this series. In the first game, on the Braum, he was able to deny so much engage from G-Rex. And let's see the Baron play here. So Flash Wolves was able to get the Baron, but it looked like the fight was going to be pretty messy. Cosmic Radiance barely saves Sword Art. And Maple here almost dies, but Moonjin gets onto the backline. Sitch was able to flash out, but the rest of his team is super low, and the Ricochet just destroys the entire team. And Maple was just able to completely clean up the fight for a quadra kill. And after that, the game's basically over.
God, I'm actually now like Craigasming over that play the more I think of. Oh my god, and because it was just so easy and clean afterwards. He just
That's 200 IQ play by Sword Art.
yeah
Wins them the game.
the invisible stun, dude. Holy moly, this.
Wow, the more the more I think about it, the more genius that play was.
Yeah, and then it's super easy for Maple to follow up and shuffle there. I just in the moment, oh my gosh, you're just thinking that like, man, are G-Rex so tilted that they just let Tarek stun them for free? But oh man, I don't even know.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
Flash Wolves are just Sword Art just have 200 IQ and they just
Yeah.
outplayed the shit out of G-Rex.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
I'm at least glad that Flash Wolves are still doing well despite not having Karsa on this team because Muujin has been a different type of player and jungler for Flash Wolves so far, and he's not been exactly like just play around bot all the time like Karsa and just snowball. But Muujin has had his moments and he's been doing well just individually, and I think as as Flash Wolves are able to develop this player even more and more, and Sword Art, and right there, that's something that's not easy to communicate, between Sword Art and Mugen with the language difference. So to actually pull that off shows
That's just synergy.
Yeah, that's just synergy, and that shows that they actually have been playing a lot and building a lot of time together. So I'm kudos to Sword Art and Mugen. So you know what, going forward, I'm not going to be questioning the communication problems as much, and because that's something that in the moment, like those are the plays that you expect from like two same language speakers or people who have been playing together for a very long time. And the fact that it's just been 3 or 4 weeks or ever since I guess Karsa was announced to go to RNG is honestly really impressive.
Yeah, and looking at the damage charts, Maple did so much damage that play, and that game. I think MVP of this game probably goes to Maple here, hard carrying his team on this Azir, and Azir as a champion, once you let him farm up and get some items, and in the mid game he's just so terrifying to play against because he's just his Sand Soldiers does so much damage. He's got mobility. He can Shurima shuffle. Yeah, holy crap. Maple hard carrying Flash Wolves to their game 2 victory.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there it is. He does get the MVP award, but I almost think that could have been argument for Sword Art getting the MVP award because honestly, I mean, like Maple does have the expectation that if he's going to play this Azir, he needs to be outputting damage, and quadra kill isn't something that's easy to come by. But when you have that team composition of like, the tanks in front of you, that's kind of your job. You're expected to output a lot of damage, and I think it was honestly how difficult it was to navigate around. Call the Forge God from Ornn, the Counter Strike and Leap In from Jax, the Braum Unbreakable Shield and Glacial Fissure, and being outranged by Stitch on the Caitlyn and having to deal with CC and Ryze, and the fact that Sword Art was able to help the team navigate through all that with really well-timed Cosmic Radiances and Dazzle Stuns onto the front line and back line is... Oh my gosh. I mean, it makes Maple's job so much easier. But
yeah, and I think if there's an MVP for the whole series, I would definitely give it to Sword Art.
Yeah.
With his brilliant unbreakable shields on the Braum in the first game, and now the Dazzles on his Taric in the second game. Great play coming from Flash Wolves, I think.
Sword Art, the Dazzle Breaker.
And I feel like that just cements Flash Wolves' position as probably the top team of the LMS of the season, I think.
Looks like we're going to jump into the interview, and you know what that means. It's time for Chairman to give his awesome translation skills. So, Chairman, go ahead and take it away for us.
Hello, my name is Sword Art. I'm the support for Flash Wolves. So Flash Wolves is 4-0 right now. Why do you think that is? So I think we have a really good synergy, but we do still have some communication issues. So game 2 you chose Taric, and you chose Glacial Augment instead of Unsealed Spellbook over Guardian. Why is that? So Glacial Augment, I think I chose it because it's really good laning, and against Caitlyn you really want to be able to push the lane. So that's part of the reason why I chose Glacial Augment.
然后那个时间点的话，直接是把双人线掉到上半部之后，卡也没摸掉。
其实那里应该算是我自己的失误，对，就是因为那时候
So Betty actually chose
然后要
TP.
用 TP 回下路，但那时候我看到上路打起来，所以我就说叫他 TP 去救上路。但其实最后救到上路的时候，我应该可以教他断掉 TP 的，这样我们就是可以救到上路，然后我们下路也是可以有就是正常的农兵的时间。对。
So actually, I asked. It was my mistake because I asked Betty to TP top lane,
对，因为
to protect top lane. But after we saved top lane, I should have asked him to cancel the TP and just walk bot, because
他用大绝一定可以直接清。
the whole point is that we wanted laning phase to last really long and use Shen to affect all over the map, but losing our turrets made that very difficult.
聊一下当时你们怎么去下这个决定，以及这样的沟通是怎么去执行的呢？
因为那时候火龙就说他可以抓到那个2，他可以一直。
So what was your communication like when you caught PK in the bot lane?
就是我跟 Betty 应该不要靠下路去抓，因为如果我们去抓，他们蛮有机会直接把巴龙吃掉。但是最后还好运气蛮好，就是他们没有吃那么快。
So
我觉得应该掉了。
是你们的话，你们
actually
我觉得如果那雷直打过去，应该可以直接吃掉。
所以是他们这边可能沟通出现一些问题。
So Homani actually said called for it, and they wanted he wanted to catch out PK, and it was a little bit of a mistake for us because Betty and I actually tried to collapse on the bot lane as well, but we got lucky and GX wasn't able to finish the Baron that quickly.
我觉得我应该没有你说那么对。
So a lot of the LMS think you're the top support in the LMS. How do you think of that?
就是做的比对面更好。
So I think I'm actually not number one. I just think I have really good communication with my teams, and that's why we're such a good team.
要做的很好，才是一个好的辅助这样。
哦，了解了。那最后一个问题哦，其实现在闪电已经坐稳了现阶段的 LMS。
So I think as a good support, the most important thing is to be able to communicate with your team.
这样以往的强队其实表现都不是特别的好。你是怎么
So right now, T-Rex is number 2, Flashwolves is number 1.
LMS 会有这样一个生态上面的差别。
我觉得最主要的原因应该是换人的影响吧，因为换人其实是对队伍就是造成最大影响的一部分，就是。
And right now, the rest of the teams are actually not that good. Why do you think that is? So I think that part of the reason is that a lot of the teams have new players coming in, and they're still trying to build up their synergy. And I think that even though they're not that good right now, but they will be able to build up a synergy through the season and hopefully get better. And that's it for the interview. And looking at the standings, Flashwolves and JC are both 3-0 right now, followed by G-Rex. And then Machi Esports is number 4, and Machi and Matt team are actually tied for 4th and 5th. And followed by them is HQ and Team Afro. And unfortunately, in the last place is Hong Kong Attitudes. Still haven't been able to win a single series.
Feels bad, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is definitely where it's not the series I was expecting from G-Rex, but I think this is valuable for them to lose this hard, as this can only be the fire of motivation for the best teams, you know, and if G-Rex is totally going to be, you know, a top contender of LMS and represent LMS potentially at Worlds this year, or be the #1 seed to represent LMS at MSI, then they have to be able to learn a lot from this series from Flashwolves, and you know, hopefully Toys can rally them up and get them to focus on, you know, things that they need to work on. Most likely, it seems like communication issues and just being able to understand how to play to win conditions more, and just, you know, having the confidence to still make plays and even play under pressure.
Yeah, and I think for GX, there's some pretty clear takeaways from this game, and I think that's a good thing because compared to some other series, when other teams lose, like sometimes the other team is just a better team, but in this case, there's specific points in this game where GX Twice can point and say here's what you should have done. There's what you did was not the most optimal play. For example, in game 2 when PK got collapsed on by 2 members, they should have started better and faster and just finished it, right? And that's honestly what lost them the game because they weren't decisive enough. So that's something they can work on. So I do think that from GRX standpoint, sure they got too old, but there's clear lessons to be learned,
Indeed. Well, with that being said, that does end today's coverage of the LMS for G-Rex versus Flash Wolves, and that is the end of week 3. On the stream here, we see the schedule for next week. Couple notes. So we will not, or at least I will not be able to be here to cover the. Let's see. Well, we'll post updates to the schedule. There's one of these days where one of us cannot make it, and so we'll try to figure out how we can compensate for that day. But we will still be covering the other 3 days of the schedule. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed today's series, and you all have a good night as well.
Or a good morning wherever you are. And thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Sam El Chairman Xie, and my co-caster,
Mark Rafa Arambide.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Take care.